Welcome, welcome, everyone. You are at the What's the Program, an invitation to engage session of the Leaders Summit for this winter. I'm Mara Welton, Programs Director. I'm joined by my colleagues, Carla Stahl, Gwen Chris, Fernando Davina. We've also got Jeff Quattrone, and all these folks are going to help me share the story of programming for this coming year. This is really exciting to have you all here, and all of these sessions are going to be recorded. So not to worry if you have to bop out and bop back in or whatever, you won't miss anything. Everything is going to be uploaded to the Slow Food USA YouTube channel. So Brian has told us within 48 hours of the sessions, he'll be able to get them up for you. So if you want to reference them or whatever, they're available. So today the session is an hour and a half, and the way we're going to format it is we're going to talk about a program and then allow questions after that, and then talk about another program and then allow questions after that. This should be a good conversation time and knowledge sharing time, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. Last year, we celebrated the wonderful world of legumes and pulses. They helped us talk a lot about biological and cultural biodiversity, about climate adaptability, and about nutrition. And it really galvanized the network. We really had that central theme was a great excuse to talk about all those issues. And so we thought we'd carry on with this year and have the Plant the Seed campaign be greens, because when I was farming, we would always follow the leguminous crop with greens because the greens really benefit from the nitrogen. So thematically it works. And also the world of greens is vast and just so abundant. I looked to Dr. Lenny Sorensen to give us some inspiration for the greens campaign this year when she said, "Greens belong to all of us. We who eat our collard, our mustard, and turnip greens because we love them. However we eat them, we are those folks who do so in total wallowing enjoyment." And that's what I hope we all feel like at the end of this campaign. I've been steeping myself in greens, and I'm going to share with you now share with you sort of the vision as we move forward. Plant to Seed campaign has been around for about 8 years this year. I think it's the 8th. And always with Plant to Seed, there's two central thematics that's engaging with climate and also nutrition. Those are sort of the central themes always. And then there's always a third leg to that table, which changes from year to year. And I wanted to give you a insight into how I've been thinking about the Plant to Seed campaign coming up. So as you're planning and thinking about the future for your chapters, you can sort of know where Mara's mind is set and thinking about the future also. So if we look at the slide here, last year was beans. We had climate and nutrition as a central focus, and also food security. We talked a lot about seed saving with that campaign. And this year for 2023, climate and nutrition will be central as well, but we're going to talk about the communities who celebrate them and the biological and cultural diversity that abounds. You know, greens, as I was researching greens, I started thinking a lot about identity, and a lot of cultures really identify with their greens. So I thought this is a great opportunity for us to really talk about the communities that celebrate these amazing crops. So that's the focus for this year. My eyes are set on 2024 to roots and shoots is what I'm loosely calling it. It's not super accurate, but I'm going to talk about root crops and grains simultaneously, because we're going to talk about not just climate and nutrition, but also stewardship and soil building. So you can sort of see what we're doing here. With the beans, we're building the soil and setting the stage for the greens to uptake those nutrients. When we work the greens back into the soil, we're building the soil, and the roots and shoots benefit from that. That soil building activity is really going to benefit 2025 when we talk about the fruits, and fruits really express flavor and adaptability. And we can talk about terroir, which is a very favorite slow food subject when we talk about fruits, because that expression of all this work and all the things we've been doing to build up our soils really comes to fruition, literally, with fruits. So I'm really excited that we have this sort of multi-year plan for Plant to Seed. Greens, we are really excited about greens. We've enlisted the able, amazing artistry of Alexandra Antoine who, if you're in the loop of Crop Stories, she did the artwork for the Collard zine that was put out by Crop Stories. And we asked her if she'd be interested in helping us with our campaign. And so she's busily making some collages for us. She's a wonderful collage artist. So I will talk to you a little bit about what each of these guys are in the kit, and sort of the framing of what the Plant a Seed campaign is going to be. It's a campaign, but it's also a kit. So as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about using the greens to help us talk about climate resilience, about nutrition, and the biological and cultural diversity. And the greens are really exciting because they're so widely adapted. You know, they can grow in really cool climates. There are some that are adapting to really hot climates. They're very fast growing, so we can get multiple successions out of this, out of the plantings this year. It's not just a one and done, sort of like when you're doing tomatoes and peppers. So there's a lot of room for error and learning. A lot of these are self-sowing, so you could possibly have some perennializing activity with these plants. And several of them grow great in marginalized soils. So when we talk about climate and the effects of climate change, greens are a really nice ally in the garden because they can really help us be successful gardeners and also benefit from really soils that maybe might not be the most vigorous. They naturalize, like I said. Some are, you know, the self-sowing, when they go to seed, they will naturalize in an area. And so in the case of some of the brassicas, we'll have discussions about how they're naturalizing in some areas, and perennializing in the case of collards, which is a really interesting subject. So we have a lot to talk about around climate, with the greens as the focus. Of course, with nutrition, it's super, it kind of goes without saying, super greens. Everybody knows greens really are sort of the key to really intensely good nutrition. They're nutritional powerhouses. I read somewhere that they're the best nutrition per square foot in the garden is greens, for what they do for your overall health. All of these crops that are in the kit this year have flower to root edibility, which means there's no food waste if you know that you can eat all of the pieces of the plant. They're also representing multiple food groups. So as you saw, next year, we're heading towards roots and grains. And so I included amaranth in the kit this year because you can eat the greens, but also it's a grain. And we'll talk about how, you know, these plants are so generous in their culinary diversity. Also, greens are super delicious. We have a vast array of flavor profiles in the kit this year, from bitters to the sharp mustards to the really earthy collards. It's a lovely, it's not a one-hit wonders or a one palette, you know, one note palette experience with greens. And there's a lot of really interesting culinary innovation happening in the world of greens. So there's lots that we can talk about there, just fun in the kitchen. And then, as I mentioned earlier, greens will help us talk with lots of different communities, that the biological and cultural diversity. There's a lot of interesting work being done around collards. We're going to have an ally in the Heirloom Collards Project, folks. We're going to partner up for a lot of programming this year. You know, the diversity of greens in your gardens really can maximize that nutrition. So we'll talk about all the different biodiversity that's out there. And then the communities that celebrate these greens will connect us to some communities we haven't really highlighted in the past. So that's going to be fun. And as I mentioned earlier, all of these crops are deeply tied to identity across the globe, especially in the case of, like, you know, the Amaranth Plus group. You know, we're talking about the greens in terms of, like, we've got your brassicas, you got your mustards, you got your broccolis, you got your lettuces, you got your chicories. And then you've got this other group that I've been calling Amaranth Plus, which sort of represents, you know, these crops that we don't necessarily grow for the greens, but are really beneficial for the greens. So amaranths, I'm talking nettles, I'm talking, you know, the pumpkin leaves, and also sweet potato vine and things like that, that are really incredibly nutritious and available to us in our gardens, but we might not ever think of them as greens. So that opens the door for that conversation as well. All right. to talk about the kit itself, for every kit purchased, one will go to a school garden. This has been the tradition of Plant a Seed campaign. We did 750 kits last year, and they sold out in 5 weeks. It was just really amazing. Everyone was very excited about the kit. We are able to bump that only a little bit this year, so planning on 800 kits, so 400 to school gardens and 400 for sale, which will be really, really awesome. So I'm excited for that. The original date for launching the campaign was going to be Valentine's Day. I'm still waiting on a few components, and we haven't quite finalized the artwork for the campaign yet, so we're going to bump it back a week. But keep your eye out. We'll be blasting it on all the channels, but they'll be available for purchase at that point. And so to unveil what is in the kit, we have the collards. There is going to be, let me just see my next slide really quick to make sure. Yeah, okay. So the collards is we're doing ultra cross collards from Ujamaa seeds. They are a really interesting conversation about using a bunch of heirloom varieties in a single packet of collards, and then the ones that grow really well in your area will be the ones that express and are successful in your gardens. So I'm really excited to feature those. We have escarole, which is a chicory. Those are coming to us from Uprising Seed in Washington. We have lettuce, that's going to be the Hanson lettuce. It's on the Ark of Taste. We're getting those from our friends at Small House Seeds. The mustard is a new Ark of Taste item. It's the Feaster's mustard. That's coming from Working Food, a very small company, small seed company group. So that's an Ark of Taste. So is the Hansons. And then Asian broccoli, we're doing a Yu Choi Sum, which is a flowering broccoli. And then sea kale is a new Ark of Taste item from the Northeast that's going to be in the kit. And that's a really interesting perennial green that you can eat every single part of. And then, as I mentioned, amaranth, the variety that we got is from, it's called New Mexico Amaranth, and it is a beautiful bicolor, and it's very productive both in the greens and in the grains. So those are going to be lovely. I'm finalizing some coupons that'll be in the kit to hopefully get you some supplies for growing these out. Also a lot of really fun stickers. And then we're working to develop another zine. We did a bean zine last year, which was a place to get all of your information about growing and enjoying those beans. This year, we're aiming to do a similar thing with greens. And then we have partnerships with 3 amazing two, actually. These are all the Crop Stories folks. They have an issue on greens. They have another zine issue on collards, as I mentioned. And then the Radicchio zine comes to us from our friends at the Culinary Breeding Network up in the Pacific Northwest. And these are going to be available in our Slow Shop as an add-on to your kit. So if you'd like to learn more and read more about these amazing crops, you can tack on some more goodies to your kit when you buy one. The campaign itself, it's a kit and a campaign, as I mentioned. And like I said, it provides us the opportunity to center climate resilience, nutrition, and biological and cultural diversity. And I am really excited about just telling you about these varieties because they're so unique, and they really describe a lot about the biodiversity of this giant group of vegetables. And we're going to be engaging with communities to celebrate these greens. So I have in the hopper 2 very important weeks coming up. One in September, that'll be Collard Week. And we're going to develop that in partnership, as I mentioned, with the Heirloom Collard Project folks. And then the second one is Chicory Week, which will be happening in October with our friends at the Culinary Breeding Network. And we're going to provide sort of a roster of events for that week that you could engage with on a chapter level. It's still being developed, but it's going to be really, anything from like snail of approval chefs should throw a chicory item on their menu for this week, and then they can partner with their chapter and celebrate that particular green that week. Or you could host a potluck, or you could do a slow food live. So like we're developing what each of those things might be. So you could sort of choose your own adventure with how you want to celebrate collards and how you want to celebrate chicories in your chapters. The other way we're going to activate this campaign is by growing the seeds in our own gardens. I do this myself. Here I have a large garden. I did this with the beans last year, where I'm going to grow out all of the crops and sort of give updates on the Plant a Seed Facebook page, which is a nice community. So if you engage in the campaign, I encourage you to join the Plant a Seed Facebook page so that we can have that ongoing communication. Also, we were planning on doing a few slow food lives for some cooking demos with some of the chefs in our network at the Cooks Alliance. And I think, Fernando will probably mention something along these lines, but we're hoping to engage more with our groups, our Cooks Alliance group, to generate some recipes and also help us with some of the interpretation for how are we gonna serve these greens in our homes and with our communities. There's also some really interesting innovations happening with collards, so I'm excited to bring you some of that news in the form of a Slow Food Live later this year. And like I said, sharing recipes and getting growing support. So this is very much a community engagement type of project. So let's see, I think that's me. I'm going to open it up to questions. I know I covered a lot here, but I'm open. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, excitement?
Joe just had there's a small little thread going on if you've ever grown purslane or pigweed.
Oh, super. Yeah, those will be in the Amaranth Plus group. I have definitely grown both of those, and they are, and pigweed is actually an amaranth. So there you go. Yeah. Also, that Amaranth Plus group for me, there's an opportunity to talk about seaweeds actually, and sea vegetables. So we'll be trying to shine a light on all of those greens.
A couple more questions popped in regarding cost of the seed kits. Kathy and Lily are both curious how much the seed kits will cost.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for that. They are going to be, I think, around $40, $45, somewhere like that. There's 7 seed packets in there, and we have a lot of information this year. So I think that I haven't nailed it down because I'm still waiting on a couple of numbers to come in for some costs that are associated with the kits, but around 40 to 45 is my hope. Amazing. Oh, really? Slow Food North Louisiana hosts an annual Greens Festival. Whoa. That is amazing. Angie, we should talk. I would love to talk about how that program is developed over there. Woohoo, this is amazing. Yeah. Awesome. Ping me. Yeah. Zeitgeist, last year we did beans and now beans are everywhere, right? Have you noticed? Like, I feel like there's so many bean things happening in the world. It's very exciting. So maybe we're a catalyst of some sort. I super hope so. Well, I really hope that you find this it gets the wheels turning about ways that you can engage around greens in your community. Hopefully some of the prompts from our side of things will, activate some engagement for you. And I'm happy to help develop any programs that you might have. And it sounds like Angie has some ideas herself as well. So together we will celebrate greens, and I'm really excited to do this with you this year. Amazing. All right. Well, if you have questions going forward, email me. You guys all know how to get in touch with me. It's mara@slowfoodusa.org. All right, Collis, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Mara. I appreciate it. For everyone who on board here, I am the Slow Fish North America Network Coordinator. I'm also on the oversight team with Mara. And in fact, for the past several months, Mara and I have kind of been partners in crime. That is, we've been planning this Slow Fish Rising Tide project, and it's been an intense planning process, but we're already seeing the fruits of it. The idea behind the Rising Tide, as you see on the screen there, is to bring the slow fish values, good, clean, fair, seafood with values discussion to slow food communities across the country. Now, when we talk about slow food communities, it doesn't necessarily have to be a strictly organized community, because we've actually found that this is a good way to ignite that conversation. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to backfill some of the history here, because as some of you might know, slow fish and slow food in the US had for a while had been sort of swimming in parallel. And it wasn't but about 3 or 4 years ago when we got really intentional. How do we cross-pollinate our values? How do we cross-pollinate our communities, our networks, so that we are talking about, because often in these cases, we're talking about some of the same issues on the waterfront as happens on a farm. And so we wanted to figure out, how can we bring these communities together and work in a way that we can bring the shared values outward, and at the same time raise collective attention around issues that might be common in both networks. And so we did that, and we've started thinking holistically about how we're going to bring this joint thinking around shared values, good, clean, fair, to a broader audience. And this is what the Rising Tide program is. So we've been working in trying to identify how we're going to do this. Our goal was to take some of the learned practices and programs that we've done in other networks that have been successful and use them as ways to engage communities in conversations about seafood with values and what that means and why that matters. So we developed a program that has a variety of different approaches. And on the next slide, I'll share a link that has a menu of Rising Tide types of programs that we can allow host communities to select the type of vibe that they think will be most effective for their communities. For example, Mara and I just got back from Austin, Texas last week. Yeah, it was icy. There was an ice storm there. It was really kind of freaky. It was beautiful when we were driving through Austin, but then it made us sort of think about signing that insurance waiver on the rental car we had. Either way, we got fined. But we had co-hosted a sustainable seafood dinner at a restaurant in Bastrop, Texas, about 25 minutes outside of Austin. And this sustainable seafood dinner was a collaboration with the host restaurant, Storehouse Market and Eatery, with a commercial fisherwoman out of Alaska. Her name is Sarah Ecalano. She comes from Copper River Fish Market, with a fishmonger in Austin. Her name is Carol Huntsberger with Quality Seafood, and with chefs Sonia Cody and Kate Rousset. This whole project came about because Sarah Ecalano was sitting in a workshop that I was hosting at a Local Catch Network conference in Anchorage, Alaska in October, talking about the rising tide and this concept of bringing these values to a broader community. She emailed me, said, I love this idea. I've got a chef who is a customer of mine in Austin, Texas, that I think would love to do this project. And here we are, just 4 months later, and we had an amazing dinner where Sarah told the story of the halibut and the Copper River king salmon that people were eating. She talked about the sustainability of the fishery. She talked about fresh versus frozen, which is often a question I get all the time. Carol Huntsberger talked about the importance of relationships, the relationships she has with the fishermen that supply the seafood to her store, the relationships with chefs like Sonia and Kate, and the relationships with customers, getting them to be bold enough to own their responsibility, their relationship to the seafood that they eat. Everybody asked a lot of questions. They engaged in the conversation. They stuck around long after dessert came out, and this was an unqualified success. Now, how do we measure success? In this case, we got notification that there is a community in Bastrop, Texas, that does not have right now a slow food affiliation, they are looking at building a slow food community. So this is how we measure success. This is what we are trying to do, get more people engaged in our values. Next up is in Charleston. In a couple of weeks, Mara and I will be flying down to Charleston and visiting Julie Schaefer. We were going to be going to the Charleston Wine and Food Festival, where the Charleston Slow Food chapter there was all over this concept of interweaving, bringing in slow fish values to this huge event. So we're going to be very busy while we're down there. We're going to have 4 days of programming. Shucked is this huge oyster event. There are going to be all kinds of oyster harvesters there. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of fresh shucked oysters, but there's also going to be tabling and storytelling. And at that point, we're going to be talking about slow fish, slow food, seafood with values, food systems with values, knowing where your food comes from, where your seafood comes from, and why that matters. Direct interaction with people, it's great engagement, and we'll have signage and visibility. The other big event that we're going to be involved with is a seafood throwdown. A seafood throwdown is something that started with a partner organization of ours, North America Marine Alliance, where you get 2 chefs, you give them seafood, similar, they get the same type of seafood and they prepare it different ways. And the audience gets to vote on whose preparation is better. In this case, we're going to be having Chef Kevin Mitchell on the board of Slow Food USA, a chef scholar. He has so much depth of knowledge about the history of the food that's coming on. He's going to give us some background, because the seafood that we're going to be using is porgy or scup, which is widely available, very underutilized, but has a great cultural, historical tradition there. He's going to be paired with Tia Clark of Crabbing with Tia. Amazing story there. She does a kind of ecotourism where she has a bed and breakfast, but she takes people out crabbing, and then they come back in and they cook it. And it's just such a great story. So we're going to have some great storytelling here. They're going to tell the story about their connections with porgy, historical context, possibly roots going into Gullah Geechee, cultural influences there. And then Mara and I are going to bring some broader context about why it matters, why knowing that, first of all, this local seafood, which is abundant and has a seasonality, is important to be aware of, the implications on long-term seafood choices, and as well, the concept of, first of all, knowing that local seafood, the term local is becoming a little bit less just about geography and more about relationships. For example, as I mentioned, Sarah Echelano up in Alaska connected with a chef down in Texas. That is a local relationship in our view, because they know where the seafood's coming from. They know how it's handled. It is harvested responsibly. All of the values line up. We're also going to be involved with a couple of pop-ups at a restaurant, as well as a fishmonger, and where the values align. Again, every time we have one of these appearances, it's an opportunity to tell a story of why seafood with values is important. And engaging in the community like this, whether it is an organized slow food chapter or not, is an engagement in the values, and pushing that forward brings more people into the fold. Coming up in April, Mara and I will be going to Philadelphia, where we've been working with Slow Food Philly on what we're calling a Rising Tide Chefs Camp. The idea is to bring in some local chefs to talk about sourcing, to talk about seafood with values, to talk about kind of owning that relationship with their customers and the sort of the educational role that can come into play in terms of sharing knowledge about seafood with values. So it goes, the conversation always goes from the producer to the chef as educator and preparation, and to the consumer, and hopefully as an evangelist to bring those messages forward. So we're going to have a couple of our partners lined up. Wild for Salmon. This is someone, in fact, I think I saw Scott Steen here working with Steve Curry, and Wild for Salmon is an operation that is based in Pennsylvania, but Steve Curry goes up to Bristol Bay to fish for salmon, and he's been doing this for the past 20 years. All, again, values aligned. Fishadelphia is this very cool community-supported fishery in Philadelphia that is providing locally sourced fish to underserved and diverse communities. And it is run through two local high schools. An amazing story. It's actually been written up in the Hikai magazine recently. And so, so we're going to have these conversations with these producers or fishmongers, in this case, CSFs, engaging with chefs about how the fisheries work, their sourcing, and their community networking. So those are the three things that we have either done or already baked. What's coming up next? So this list continues to grow as people hear about the work that we're doing and they want to get on board. Because one of the lessons that we've learned so far is that once we start talking about this kind of programming, communities really feel, particularly communities that feel that they don't have a strong community around seafood with values, but that could get there, they want to bring us in. So there's one that we've been working on with Kevin Scribner. He's also on the oversight team with us on the Columbia River Gorge. There's a whole story up there in terms of indigenous cultures, dam removal, restoration of habitat, community building, wineries, food, slow wine, slow cheese, all of these different communities that we'll stitch together. The Houston one is actually a byproduct of this no fish dinner that we did in Austin, and they've actually started showing videos of, like, when I did Slow Fish 101, I think, I don't know, 3 years ago or something like that, and doing other programming just to sort of prime the pump. And we're talking about the possibility of doing an in-person event in the summer. So again, these types of things, all of these ideas here are in the works in different phases. They might be like the dinner that we did in Austin is called a no fish dinner. That is something that I started with my One Fish Foundation, sustainable seafood education nonprofit, back in 2016. The reason I'm mentioning that, again, these are types of programming that we have experience with, that we're bringing forward to this, and then shaping based on the way that the host community would like to make it work. So the last thing I'm going to say real quick is, if your community, if you think that your community might be a good fit for something like this, send an email to Mara or me, and we can talk about it. Because this type of engagement, and Dion was at the one in Austin, it was great to have him there. This type of engagement, getting folks in these conversations about seafood with values, it resonates. As long as you've got it planned ahead, it works very well. I think I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Collis. There's lots of excitement around fish this year. I want to open it up if anyone has any questions for Collis, and if not, we can move on.
Jody in the chat asked if we were interested in the Charleston or Philly ones. Just was answered a little bit. Just get in touch with Carlos or Mara, the contacts are on the slide currently.
Awesome. Yeah, I see Teresa's question too about New Jersey, which is really exciting. I know there's a lot of interest up there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just deleted a question too, because I was going to ask about landlocked states, because there are people that are super interested in sustainable and responsible seafood and fish, but we have trout and things like that, but it'd be great to do something in some of the landlocked states too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you'll see in the list, we talked about Great Lakes. And I get this question all the time in classrooms often. What about Kansas? And the thing is, yes, there's definite interest there. It really circles around finding out what is currently available, and then what kind of conversations you can have with the people who are able to bring seafood in, or are there other ways of doing it? For example, as I mentioned before, Steve Curran with Wild for Salmon and Scott Steen. Wild for Salmon has a sister organization called Pride of Bristol Bay, and they do buying clubs. So you can get a group of people together and you get a big shipment of wild salmon, and then you distribute it among the community. So there's different ways to engage that conversation. And the one thing I will just get back to on this slide here, please feel free to go to the website where it says Rising Tide, and you'll see there's a menu of options. You can take a look at that, and that'll give you an idea of some of the things that we're talking about, but we can customize things based on what your community feels would be the most effective.
Great. Thank you so much. Carlos, there's a question about where people can find good, clean, and fair fish with no toxins. Maybe you can pop some info in the chat while we move on to our next speaker. Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlos. All right, I'm going to queue up Fernando Divina, who's on the leadership team for Slow Food Cooks Alliance. Fernando, take it away. Oh, you're muted, Fernando. Sorry.
There we are. How's that?
Perfect. We can hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Mara. Yeah, exciting stuff with the fish. I think one of the things that to segue from Coles, we are working with Kevin on the Columbia River Gorge projects and others. And I just moved from the coast to inland in eastern Washington. So one of the challenges I'm finding is being able to engage slow food principles with in a small village that's essentially landlocked, or we're separated by topography. There's a big mountain, Cascade Mountain range we have to go through to get to the East Coast. So it's quite a barrier. But I think one of the things that with fish in particular, we have so many challenges with fish, and the notion of values and buying fish that's produced considerable distance. It's really worth taking a deeper look to understand how you're helping the planet by buying those products. And so we really encourage folks to get involved with slow fish. And I think Cole's also mentioned that he spoke to chefs being the educators and advocates, and sort of threading all of our initiatives, slow initiatives, through to a consumer level. And I think one of the transitional aspects of our post-pandemic and where we are today is this sort of CSA approach, as you spoke to, about cooperative buying, and also the fact that people are cooking more at home. So shifting from not just restaurants and not just chefs, but also to the broader community to provide these better choices of good, fair, and clean products. So that's Cooks Alliance is is naturally still, those that suffered through the pandemic and those that are now recovered and growing. There's quite a bit of growth I'm noticing recently with some friends here. But for last year, for 2022, essentially we were just tailing out on the regenerative aspects of Slow Food Cooks Alliance. We had a lot of reshaping and rebuilding the dialogue, the difference between slow chefs and slow cooks. I think I wasn't in on the initial transitional discussions, but it's apparent that the aspect of cooking food, educating, and sharing the food system's values is broader than just chefs. And I think that one of the keys is to expand that to all cooks, because anybody that's preparing food really needs to ascribe to the tenets that we're putting forward. So we spent a lot of time finishing out from rebuilding our administrative platform. We've essentially got a means and a way for the creative process for us. We've now taken to trying to thread many of the initiatives, Slow Fish, Slow, all of our Slow partners, through to specific levels of communication, and then also to try to get ahead of it. And with things like this, being able to provide enough time in advance for chefs to engage. And I think one of the keys for chefs is that, particularly chef owners and small operators, or chefs that are not owners, that have to sort of they're writing the political aspects of being in a corporation, that have to sell the slow food tenets to their broader organization, and then to fund it, because a lot of our processes right now are expensive, and so we have to figure out how to budget that. But we're trying to we've got a plan for each year now, and we've got a newsletter that we're putting out. We really know we need to grow. We've had there's quite a bit of fallout after the pandemic. There still hasn't been quite a lot of recovery, and when you talk about funding and able to do things like host an event and that sort of thing, that becomes a challenge for small operators. So what we're trying to do is encourage, put the word out, and try to help provide information, help assist with menu planning, and encourage chefs to engage. Like with these Rising Tide events, for example, chefs can menu some of the fish that are seasonal and speak to the Rising Tide, even though they're not particularly at the event, and they're not hosting an event, but there's no reason why they can't use that period of time, a week, the month, that's happening. So to figure out ways to tie into the initiatives, to try to tie in as many of the programming opportunities that we have, so that we can entice chefs and cooks to come and play with us. We've got some engagement strategies that I just spoke to that we're trying to mobilize, and overall, from an international standpoint, we're trying to improve the quality of the network by expanding the programming. And so, this is an exercise today in getting aligned with some of these 2023 events that are upcoming, and then to create some of our own. As far as engaging what we hope to do for 2023, we want growth. We need to engage our membership that exists, and we need to entice new members. I've been a member of Slow Food since the 90s, and with kind of in and out of actual hands-on involvement with slow food, but practicing the tenets in those down years. And I think that, one of the things that, chefs are always called upon, you got a throwdown, for example, you mentioned for the seafood, Rising Tide. Those take a tremendous amount of energy to, some people take it in stride, it's fun, they go, doesn't matter. They cook some food and have a good time. Other chefs, if they're high operating and low staffed types, it takes a lot of time for them to, take the time out, figure out the creative, go do it, the cost of the events themselves, and so on. So what we would like to do is figure out how we can make it accessible to everyone, whether they're in a small village in the center of the country, or if they're in a thriving metropolis, and then that they can somehow engage with slow food and the initiatives and the events without having to actually expend a lot of energy. So we're trying to engage and educate our membership and help support them. We have created some other tools that we're making available, a toolkit actually for new members and leadership. If you know anybody that's interested in Cooks Alliance leadership, send them my way, please. With seal of approval in particular, that's been a subject that Mara and I have talked about, and the group has talked about considerably. I think one of the things that I found or find in my network is that whether you're a grocery store serving some food or a hospital serving food with good, fair, and clean practices, or it doesn't matter what level. If you're handling food, that if you're aspiring to, if you're aware of the seal of approval criteria, if you're striving to align with those the good, clean, and fair aspects of the seal of approval, then aspiring to it and getting there, or being there and maintaining it is I think a key. And providing the opportunity to get the seal of approval, to bring it to life is a challenge in itself. I suppose you'll speak to that. In Seattle, for example, and in this region here, there's only one real seal of approval source. So, as chefs and as the leadership team has put forth, we'd like to somehow get together with you, Gwen, figure out how we can help facilitate the seal of approval process, either through initiation or helping with the certification process and so on. But it's important, I think, to engage cooks with the seal of approval. So.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm having
That's
a little
okay.
bit of a glitch over here, Fernando, but I wanted to take a moment. I know Joe had a question for you earlier. Joe?
Joe?
Sure, thanks. And I think there's somebody else had a comment in the chat about mercury in fish. That's what we're all worried about in the Midwest landlocked hinterland where we are now. Now it's microplastics and PFAS in the water that could be in the fish. And even sea salt. How do you know that there's not microplastics in your sea salt? So this is an issue. I don't think slow food's going to solve that problem, but those are issues that some people are concerned with. The point I wanted to make is that cooking with somebody, whether it's your partner, family, whomever, it allows you to engage with other people. And is there too much pepper, not enough cilantro, and that sort of thing like that? That really helps people as they get older to engage with their living group and enhances brain plasticity. It's great to have chefs cook for us. I think it's better if chefs show us how to cook, and we do. Most of the time we eat at home anyway. And cooking, again, with somebody and discussing, why do you want this? Do you want that? And so forth. It's critical as people get older in age. It allows them to stay younger.
Yeah, that's a super great point. And I can say from experience being on the team for a while, every time we do a Slow Food Live that's a cooking demo, those are some of our most viewed Slow Food Lives. People do want to learn from our chefs and our cooks and in the Alliance, and really would love to engage more with that work. So thank you for giving voice to that. Fernando, did you want to respond?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think traceability is key, and the transparency, knowing your source and trust, and building a trusting relationship with respect to purchasing salt, for example. And but to that though, it's unless it's tested for those plastics, it may not be known. So that's a good point. Cole could probably speak to the fish issue. That's a huge challenge with respect to fish being a product of their environment, and there's all kinds of resources, but not all of them are necessarily accurate. But I think Cole's is, slow food should be, especially slow fish, should be the go-to source for finding out that kind of information. It may not be available directly, but they can certainly steer you towards what's modern thinking. And to that point, though, I think all of us should be aware that what is there's seasonal issues with respect to the conditions of the water and the conditions of the environment for fish. So red tides are an example of that. But also there's allocations being met. So what was acceptable to buy in one season or at the beginning of the season may abruptly stop, and you shouldn't be buying that product, or it comes off the list. So those are the kinds of things that engaging with slow fish is going to help us all understand how to make wise choices as consumers.
Yeah, and as much as we have all these intra-network programming, there's lots of opportunities to engage with all of these groups. So we can just keep our finger on the pulse together. I'm going to cut you off there, Fernando, so we can hear from Gwen and Jeff, and I can give everybody an insight on a couple of other programs. I appreciate everybody's attention today. You've been really, really attentive and have such fabulous questions. Keep them coming in the chat. We'll keep answering them as we go. Gwen, you're up.
Thanks, Mara. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I am Gwen Christ. I'm from the Slow Food Utah chapter, and I've been participating on the Snail of Approval committee or working group kind of since the beginning. So I was gonna just start out by just giving a little bit of background for if there are any of you that aren't really familiar with the program. So the Snail of Approval is an award that is given by chapters to recognize, honor, celebrate those businesses like farms, restaurants, distilleries and breweries, food trucks, ranchers, fishers, all of the food providers in our community that are built around slow food values and are committed to good, clean, and fair. So it's a program that's modeled after the International Snail of Approval program, but really was built with great input from chapters that had already had a program like this going in their own chapters for, historically. And so there was a working group that was formed a couple of years ago, I guess. Geez, time flies. It might be even 3 or 4 years ago. And we worked on forming the parameters and the program and the application process for the Snail of Approval. And the application link is on the national website, but those applications are reviewed on a local level. So it's completely, managed within the local chapters. So we created an application form and process, and along with a national directory and map. So on that slide on your screen, you can see that map with the little bullets highlighting the different awards. Some chapters have a great number and others a smaller number, but they're kind of, I think it's interesting that it's sort of spread in this band across the middle of the country. And then there's Seattle up there, which is really cool. And then Texas too. So the Snail of Approval program has benefits for awardees as well as chapters. The awardee gets recognition and national exposure, creating opportunities to interact and connect with members from the slow food community around the country. If I'm going to go on a vacation to Sonoma County or Sonoma area in California, I can just click on that part of the map and find out what businesses I can check out while I'm there. So that's a really fun aspect to it. And then chapters really get a lot of benefits in terms of increasing their membership, increasing their exposure to new groups of people in the community, the outreach, and an opportunity for what is the fun part, which is the events and the celebrations for those awardees, really getting to honor them in a public way. And then the national organization and really the global network really benefits as well, because it helps to amplify our voice, as Mara said, and our message throughout the country and throughout the global network. So I think it's a pretty cool program. There are currently 19 chapters that are participating, and several hundred awardees. I actually tried to count them and lost count, so I just decided to say several hundred. So
About
there's a lot.
350. I think it's about
How-
350.
350. Yeah, that's awesome. So Slow Food Utah, we really are the only chapter in the state. So we do our whole state, but in other places they're divided, they're different chapters depending on where you're located. So since the program launched, which was a little over 2 years ago, if I'm right, the working group that was formed initially has kind of morphed into more of a community or a collective. There's an open structure. There's not really a leadership team with this project or program. It's more of a collaborative and supportive network that we meet once a month, and we share resources, we get advice from each other, we bounce ideas off each other, celebrate our progress. It's just really a great collaborative team that meets and gets to talk about this stuff. In the last year, our group, along with Mara and Brian and others from the national office, has really been refining that application process and making it more specific and more tuned to different types of businesses. And I think the application revised will roll out this month. Is that right? Yeah, and I think it's going to make a really big difference in the process for applicants. We've also worked hard on updating the website, and especially that map, making it more searchable by different categories and by state and location, all that kind of thing. There have been a lot of resources created for chapters that have the program, like postcards. You probably can't see this if I'm holding that, but this really cool little postcard that Brian designed. And it has a customizable QR code on the back, and that's to hand out to people to get them to check out the program. A poster, some stickers, a national letter of welcome that goes out to new awardees, welcoming them from the national office. A certificate of award. In our chapter, we frame that and give it out to our new awardees, and they're super psyched about that. Everybody likes a framed certificate, right? And then to celebrate awardees, there have been some national campaigns. I don't know if you remember last summer, Slow and Sustainable was the title of that campaign, and that really highlighted, and then Slow Weekends as well. Those highlight some awardees in local areas and really feature the program, and that has been those are blog posts as well as social media campaigns and in the newsletters. So I feel like I've been talking really fast. We've been really busy. Oh yeah, and celebrating women-owned food businesses. And there will be more campaigns coming up this summer, as Mara mentioned in the last session with the national calendar. It showed the snail approval campaign. So we would love to have more chapters on this. I think, Fernando, maybe it was you that mentioned just the one chapter up there in Washington. It'd be great to get more chapters on board that can award these or give out these awards and really increase the program. But we'd just love to have you join us on the meetings. Like I said, it's a very open structure, and you're welcome to chime in if you're just curious and want to know more about the program, or if you think it might be a good fit for your chapter to get advice on how to launch in your individual area. I think it has huge potential for chapters. I think this is a way to really do a lot of little, small and large fundraising events around it. We've been doing here in Utah, we've been doing a series, and we've done 3 so far, and they've just been really wonderful events and very popular. And we meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 6 o'clock Eastern. And you can check out that national calendar that is on the Leader Resources page, and that has the Zoom link and the time and information. And yeah, I'd love to have you join us. And any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much, Gwen. It's been such a treat working with all of these leaders developing this program, because like she said, I mean, that the collective group that meets monthly, it's a wide variety of experience. We actually fostered the launch of the Atlanta chapter in the course of the past year, and Kamiko would come to the meetings and just learn about snail approval, and she's like, we can do this. So we sort of like helped her shepherd her program, and now they're giving out their first awards this month, which is really exciting. So yeah, come ask your questions at that meeting, or if anyone has any questions right now, we can certainly take a couple.
Yeah, and I did want to mention too, Jody's question about the Cooks Alliance membership with 2 new awardees. I think that's a great idea. I think those kinds of tie-ins with other slow food programs are perfect. This award is a perfect opportunity. Some of the applications that we have received here in my chapter have been from people who just only very recently learned about slow food, and this has been a really terrific way to engage them and spread that word, and really get the message out. So as far as getting the postcards, I think Mara, I don't know if I'm right, but there's a link on the Leader Resources or on the Snail of Approval page for chapters.
Yeah, I believe there's a marketing folder that you can
Yes.
access where all of those links live.
And it's downloadable, and then you just customize it with your own QR code.
Yep, exactly. So the file's available through Canva, and then you can manipulate it so it has your chapter's information on it, and then get them printed locally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And to the question about connecting Cooks Alliance with the new awardees, we've been talking about that a lot, and I think we're going to generate a letter that comes from Cooks Alliance to new awardees, inviting them to join Cooks Alliance. So
could we also create a letter for those chefs that have already been awarded? Because I know there's a couple here that would really love to join.
amazing. Yeah, let's circle back. I know
Great,
we have
perfect.
our Cooks Alliance meeting on Monday, so we'll nail down some details for you. And
Thank
let you know.
you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Gwen. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I really like this program. I helped create the one in Vermont, and so it's a program near and dear to my heart that I've engaged with a lot. So we have any questions, send them our way. All right, off to one of our flagship programs that's connected to international. It's with great pleasure I welcome back Jeff Quattrone. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Mara. I'm glad to be back, and I love my slow food family. To be honest with you, the Ark of Taste is the reason why I'm an advocate today and an activist. I've been familiar with slow food since the late 90s, but I didn't discover the Ark of Taste until, I don't know, maybe 12 or 14 years ago. And it was there that I learned about food biodiversity and the value of biodiversity and the threat that it was under. And, just from my personal experience growing food my whole life with my family and living in an agriculturally rich state of New Jersey, always surrounded by vegetables and fruits. And it was everywhere, farm markets, farms, orchards, and supermarkets, my backyard, or any community garden that I grew in. But I didn't understand, the genetic part of it, the biodiverse part of it. And once I found out that food can be threatened or extinct, it really struck a nerve with me. So between that and my first experience with Terra Madre in 2012, if you ever want a life-changing experience, go. It's a wonderful, it's just wonderful. And you get to meet the international community, and there's workshops and tastings, and Torino is just a beautiful place. So, so with that, that's why I started at the top level here when I talk about biodiversity, because we took, there's a lot of talk about, saving biodiversity in nature, and really we are biodiversity ourselves. So when we're saving this biodiversity, whether it's in food or with fish or with livestock or native plants, we're contributing to saving what nature has set up for us. And we're fortunate that we're at the top of the chain, but at the same time we also are destroying it. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. So that's what that's a lot of what the Ark of Taste is about. It's going into local communities to find food that are at risk. There's criteria on the website. The website is very good for engaging with the Ark of Taste. If you go to the website, there is the catalogs there. There's the international catalog, and then there's the United States catalog. There's also the form that you can fill out if you want to submit a nomination. Nomination is open to anybody. You don't have to be a member of Slow Food to fill it out. We encourage people to join us. That's our whole thing, is building this catalog so that we can have these foods that are threatened and have them documented, so that we can share them either through the Plant a Seed campaign or through the Cooks Alliance, or just through educational outreach on our own. I know here in New Jersey, I use this catalog to with School Gardens. There's a whole nother program within Slow Food that we work closely together with School Gardens program. But this is a good opportunity to engage with kids, because a lot of what we're doing is we're telling a story. We're telling about a story about a food that's threatened and at risk, and why it's at risk. And kids love stories, and they love playing in the dirt. So by having this catalog as an educational tool, it's a really wonderful way to engage at many levels. So doing a nomination does take some work. We like to have as complete a history as possible, but there's also contact emails on the website. If you go by, there's regions, and if you contact your local, either you contact your local region, or contact through Slow Food, and they'll put you in touch with the people in your area to work with. I would suggest that you reach out first, so that someone can work with you, to go through the process, because it does take some time, but it's worth it to to honor everything that's involved with these foods that we're saving. And engaging, as we saw earlier with the Plant a Seed, Mara had mentioned that sea kale was a new nomination here in the Northeast this winter. It's a very interesting food, and Mimi Edelman, who is my co-chair and my mentor when it comes to all things of ARC, she found this as a food to nominate, and it really engaged our committee to to look at this and talk about it, because it was a new food to all of us. And committee memberships are open to everyone. If you're interested in research, if you're interested in what the Ark of Taste is about, get in touch, join us. We're always looking for new people to collaborate and bring their community or their knowledge or their insight into making this catalog as good as it can be. So really, it's about nominations, it's about saving biodiversity. You know, there's a lot of fun that you can have with this, you know, in your community by bringing knowledge to the people locally that aren't aware. I know that there's, again, in New Jersey, Stoll's Evergreen Corn is a corn that was developed by Nathan Stowell in late 1830s in Burlington City. And I've been trying for a few years now to get this corn grown. But when I talk to people, you know, Jersey, you know, everybody loves their Jersey sweet corn. And, you know, when I talked to them about this Stoll's, which was, you know, the market corn up until, you know, Silver Queen came in, and I tell them that it was bred here in New Jersey, you know, their eyes light up. And all of a sudden they want, you know, they want to know about it. They want to taste it. They want to grow it. So it's that kind of local connection that you can bring to your community, not only with you know, the catalog that exists today, but by bringing nominations either to the committee or doing it yourself or joining us. Oh, and one other thing, we have a book coming out this summer. I all day long, I'm like, I can't forget to mention the book, and then I forget to mention the book. We have a great book coming out this summer. It's written by David Shields and Giselle Kennedy Lord, and it's just a wonderful collection of stories, and it's beautiful. And we're really excited about it. It's really great that we actually have a physical copy of the catalog that we can use to, you know, keep ourselves amused in the winter time when we're not growing, or that we can, you know, share with people to learn from. So I'm excited about this. I can't wait.
And the book does, we'll be able to have it in our hands in August. So I think right in time for our Summertime Leader Summit, we'll be able to have them in our little paws and we could have a reading session together. It's really a beautiful book. It was an incredibly collaborative process, and I think we'll all be really proud of it. I hope there's grower profiles and recipes. So we engaged the Cooks Alliance, we engaged, you know, some of the farmers in our community, and certainly the ArchiTaste community. So I feel really good about this one. It's going to be really cool to have.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
One other thing that I like to say about Arc of Taste is that, you know, it's about the building this catalog, but the catalog is a living thing. And, you know, we update the entries, you know, as things change. This is why the committees are so crucial. They have a lot of buy-in, you know, I have the regional committees managing the regional catalog, and they look through it, make sure things are up to date, make sure pictures are up to date. Because when we have the catalog on our website, we want it to be accurate and to be proud of it. We have 3 committees that are still being formed. COVID did a number on our whole network, guys. So we're rebuilding a couple of things. We are looking to build a committee in the Pacific Northwest, in the Southwest, and California as well. California had their own Arc of Taste committee, lots of biomes in California. So if you're interested in starting a committee or helping to maintain that catalog, reach out to me, or if you know people that you think should be involved with the Arc of Taste, send them my way. We'll start engaging some folks with the catalog. It's really cool. And, you know, interestingly, the Arc of Taste Midwest committee is the committee that had a bean supper last year. So it wasn't even a chapter driven bean supper. Sometimes these committees are really engaged in the items to the point that they want to host events too. So it's not just the catalog building, but the celebrating too. And, you know, anytime we have campaigns like the Plant a Seed, you know, I ask my committees, are there really good representatives on the Arc of Taste that should be a part of the Plant a Seed kit? So we try to make sure that we're engaging everybody in all of these programs, but Arc of Taste being one of our flagship reasons for being is really an important one to continue to engage with. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So now there's 2 more committees that are the groups that we have out there in the slow food realm that you can engage with. I will lightly touch on Slow Books here. It's structured a lot like the Snail Approval Group. It's just a group of folks that wants to get together and read books about food. And what they do as a committee the loosely defined committee, they like to create, curate these lists from year to year for the various programs. So like for the Seed Summit, they would curate a book list with all of the authors that were participating in the Seed Summit, so that you could do a deeper dive in some of those presenters. Also, something like this, the Black History Month, you can go have, slow food, curated books for the month of Black History. So they try to center inclusive reads. In addition to incorporating all the genres, we're trying to incorporate all reading levels and age groups in monthly. So new this year, they are curating not just an adult book, but also a young adult fiction or young adult nonfiction also. So there's a couple different options each month starting this year, which is really exciting. And really focusing on reads that are amplifying diverse voices. One of the flagship things of the Slow Books group has been a network-wide read-along. They did one with Braiding Sweetgrass a few years ago. They did Grist last year in honor of the bean theme. This year, they're going to do a young adult novel called With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. They're hoping to have a lot of nice, fun discussions alongside that. Sometimes it's good to just dig deep into a young adult novel, a lighter read. They're thinking this would be a good summer read, and then we could break it down in the fall together with the content that they're going to provide. They also produce some seasonally themed book recommendations. So this is new this year, that they're wanting to curate like a winter themed storytelling. So their book recommendations for the winter are sort of centering on storytelling, rest, and planning to sort of be in line with those slow food seasons, like we talked about earlier at the State of the Snail. For spring, the book recommendations will be sort of thinking about planting, sowing ideas or seeds, preparing, and newness. And for the summer recommendations, they're going to be thinking about abundance, maintenance of our gardens, also vacationing. And then for fall, the book recommendations will be more focused on the concepts of gathering, harvest, celebration, and community. So if you want to engage with that group and you have some recommendations yourself for books that would fit in those seasonal themes that would be appropriate for a slow food audience, I'm sure they'd love to hear about it. Or you could just come to the meetings. They've decided to meet every other month, so they're not on a monthly schedule. But like we mentioned earlier with the Slow Food USA calendar that you can access online, you can find those dates. The next time that they meet will be in March, and that Zoom link, you can just join the Zoom when you want to come to those meetings. So that's Slow Books. I think that there are several chapters that actually have their own book clubs also. It'd be really nice to have some of you join the National Slow Book conversation periodically, just to sort of tell us what you're up to and tell us what you are reading and what kinds of activities you're doing. That's really, really great. Awesome. Any questions about Slow Books? We're zeroing in on it here, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Last but not least, something Jeff mentioned, School Gardens Project. We have School Gardens as another program. The goal historically has been to support educators, volunteers, garden leaders, and local chapters to become more effective at sustaining school garden programs in their communities. And we really hope that chapters can serve as a local school garden hub for resources, guiding the conversation with curriculum, also to help bring volunteers to those gardens. This is a really great way to engage with your community, or it's a really good way to have a connection for a slow food chapter with something that's might already be brewing in your community. We have some resources for school gardens groups. We have two curricula, the good curricula and the clean curricula. This year, we secured an intern who's going to help us hopefully get that fair curriculum across the finish line this summer. There will be a call for lesson plans if you have teachers in your networks that you think might have some lesson plans that would be appropriate for a school garden curriculum around the concepts of fair and It's going to be it'll be so great to have that third, the third volume. So more to come on that. The monthly meetings for School Gardens are going to be the last Thursday of the month. The next one coming up at the end of this month at 5 p.m. Eastern. We would love this to work similarly as the Snail of Approval and the school books meetings work, is just come, bring your ideas, get some advice, create a community. They've sort of been hibernating, the School Gardens group, over the past couple of years. The people who are involved have been very, very busy, and COVID also they're all educators, so they've been very engaged with their schools and trying to manage all the things that teachers manage. So we're sort of regenerating this group in a lot of ways. And I think, we had a bunch of school garden educators that were Terra Madre delegates, and it would be really nice to invite people to this gathering and see what we can't do together. The Plant a Seed Kit, as mentioned, is really benefits the school garden network. If you have a school garden, you can get a free kit. And we've already talked about the campaign, so I just listed some of the key points for that campaign here. The way you would get a kit is on the Slow Seed Shop, our sort of shopping section of the website. That's where the kits will be available for purchase. And if you're a school garden educator, there'll be a special spot for you to fill out a form to receive one. So you won't have to pay for it, obviously. But more to come after we launch that campaign. School gardens. Let's see. Lovely. Are there any questions about school gardens and the school gardens group? We have a lot going on, don't we? A lot of irons in the fire. But this is the work of Slow Food. It's really nice to engage with our chapters and our communities around all of these ideals. I always describe Slow Food when I talk to someone who's a sort of new to the movement, that good, clean, and fair is sort of the axle to the Slow Food wheel, and all the spokes to the wheel, and how you get to that good and clean and fair. There's just a million spokes. So like, what's your entry to Slow Food and getting to that good, clean, and fair? It might be through gardens, it might be through books, it might be because you're a cook, etc. So it's really represented in this this time that we spent together here. Melanie, it's so good to see you. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I just got out of work, so I'm juggling a few things, but I'm happy I'm able to join for a little bit. No, I had a question about the school gardens. Is this strictly for like youth, or do college school gardens also fit into this?
It's historically been youth, just because that's who started the group. I don't think it doesn't exclude anyone, of course. I think we can have any kind of school gardens. I think it'd be awesome to have some higher education school gardens involved. There's no reason they can't be. I think it's just been who's come to the meetings and who's been involved. The curriculum that we have has been geared towards K to 12. It doesn't mean like those lesson plans can't be adapted for higher learning, but yeah, absolutely. Great
Yeah,
point.
and I was just thinking more of kind of putting another icon on the map, I guess, to show where there's a school garden. We actually have, and I mentioned this through one of the groups that met in Italy about school gardens. So we have our Indigenous Youth Ag program here at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and it's we have our demonstration gardens, which are actually accessible for all ages. So depending on the program we're offering, it's intergenerational in that sense. And we have a workshop that we've been offering. Next one will probably be in April sometime, but I'll try and share it with the group in case there's interest. So
That's awesome. Yeah, those kinds of resources and sharing are exactly what I'm hoping this group will do. And the more we're connected, the more we can do together. Thank you so much for that. Stephanie.
I was just wondering if someone can't make the meetings, are there meeting notes, or is there a folder or resources where they can? Thank you.
We'll have a running doc, and I'm going to be getting into the habit of when people sign on to that, that we invite all those people again to the next meeting. You know, even if they just pop in, I'm going to try and collect everybody's emails so that you get added to the list. There is a School Gardens sign up form on the website, and that could be another way. I think what I might do is for this first meeting is send an email to all of those people who have ever signed up on that, and just to see, maybe for like the past year and a half, to invite them specifically, and then we'll have them in the loop. But yes, totally, there will be running notes, and I'll make sure to put that link in the calendar.
Awesome. Thank you, Mara.
All right. Well, we have spent a lot of time together. There's been a lot of sharing of resources with everybody in the chat. This has been an active, amazing chat. I love it. So good to see everybody engaging and sharing ideas. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. There's so many school gardens out there, and it would be really lovely to share all of the doings. And, you know, we can help augment each other's work if we know about it. But I think that's been one of the challenges recently, is we just didn't know who's in the network and who's connected to school gardens within Slow Food. It'd be really lovely to just have some sort of sense of how many people are involved with school gardens that are also connected to Slow Food. Amazing. So let's see. I think we did it. It's about 7:30. Anyone have any general questions? Did anything percolate that you didn't get answered in the chat for any of our panel speakers today? Feel free to unmute yourself and share. Or any of our speakers have anything that they remembered that they wish they had said during their session? Look how efficient we are. How amazing.
This is Jody. I just wanted to say, I love the idea of the higher education for school gardens, because there is such food inequity in higher learning. It'd be good to somehow cross-pollinate that. Sorry for the pun.
It's inescapable. I think
I know, right?
lots of puns around growing and docking our ships. Like, yeah,
I was hearing them all throughout. I'm like, I love it.
we're just resonating. So wonderful. Well, what a joy. Dion, I would like you to pop in, if you're still here, to say what's on tap for tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, the lighting in my room is a bit weird and backlit, but tomorrow we are really excited to bring some more programming your way. Towards the end of the day, I'll be leading a session with Dan doing EIJ work. But to start off the day, we'll be going through the Farm Bill. Brett, who's been helping Brian out with the comms team, is going to be leading us through the past, present, future of the Farm Bill. And as it's one of the few occasions in which the Farm Bill gets updated. And in the middle of the day, Mara will be back at it again, talking to us about hosting events and how to host events with purpose and to make them as effective as possible. So really excited for tomorrow. Please sign up. I'll send you all a link for not just the survey, but also how to sign up for the rest of the events for the rest of the weekend too.
Awesome. Dion, are you sharing the survey in the chat, or how is that getting shared? Just with registrants?
Yes, I'm sending it through the chat. Honestly, the screen just disappeared. I have no idea where it went. But I'll be sending it out right now.
Great.
Found it. Okay, great.
Thanks for all the lovely feedback, everybody. That's great. Yeah, I mean, our network is awesome because of all of you. You know, like we love hearing all about all the projects that are happening on the ground and how we can support them. And if you have ideas for connecting with other groups, we want to make those connections. So that's great. Okay, here's our feedback thing. So if you could click that before we close out the session, that would be lovely. Awesome. Okay, well, I hope to see all of you back here tomorrow. and then we just have a couple sessions on Sunday. So we're trying to keep it fairly light this time. I think the previous leader summits have been very lengthy, but we're just trying to keep it to the high level and make sure that we're all connecting and knowing what's going on with all the toolkits, etc. So thank you so much for all of your attention. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Go eat something delicious, and let's connect further. Thank you to our speakers so much. I really appreciate all the time you put into.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'll come more prepared next time, like Stephanie. I feel like I
Yeah.
really just dropped the ball on the wine. Yeah, Collis has the beer.
Good job, Collins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is,
next
it's got a rainbow trout on it too, so
Of course.
Oh.
excellent.
Everyone, good to see you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much for coming.
Good
Good
to
job,
see you,
Denise, on the
Denise.
book.
Yeah, get the book. Invite us. There's all different events going on around the book. And it's in press. So yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah,
What's the
Mara
book?
has, yeah, and the final one is actually in press.
Oh,
So
nice.
there is the new one, but there's also an upcoming book. It's coming out in August. It's called The Slow Lane: How to Create Change with Communities. So we have that also coming out. So
Oh, thank you for letting us know.
Nice.
Awesome.
so good to see you all. Sorry, my camera's off. It's a bit windy here, so logging off now.
All right. See you
Bye-bye.
all tomorrow.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
evening.
Bye.